Welcome to Agents Growth Academy. I am your headmaster, your host, Jim Schubert. I hope you're ready to grow big or go home. We have a fantastic guest today. But first, I want to share something with you that actually she's going to share with you, which is the power of storytelling, and especially as it relates to business. Oftentimes I've heard insurance agents say, we're getting some good reviews online, but it's kind of lackluster. It's good for the Google juice, but it's not really transforming, people. It's not influencing people to really want to do business with us. How do we do that better? Well, the answer is through storytelling. And really, there are so many experiences that your clients have had with you that you probably have loads and loads and loads of stories that you could create if you had the right framework to create stories in a very impactful way. Well, it turns out, you're welcome, I have created that framework for you. And if you go to agentsgrowthacademy.com/stories, you can download it for free. It's got the framework. It'll give you some examples. And then there's actually a worksheet that you can take as many stories or experiences from your clients as you want and create them into very influential stories that will impact and hopefully transform the audience's mind to be able to say, you know what, I want to work with you. So just go to agentsgrowthacademy.com/stories to download that for yourself today. Folks, I am unbelievably blessed, grateful, super stoked, and wicked excited. Is that a thing? To introduce to you today, Meg McKeen. She is celebrating her 22nd year in the industry. Meg founded Adjunct Advisors LLC in 2018 with the essential belief that the way we sell insurance is ripe for change. Couldn't agree more. Throughout her career, working as both an underwriter and an agent within the insurance industry, Meg has held a seat at the table during thousands of insurance negotiations. She now holds space at the crossroads of personal and professional development for individuals as they grow their sales and leadership acumen through private coaching and the podcast she hosts, which is called Bound and Determined. Meg's contributions to the insurance industry have been recognized with her inclusion in Insurance Business America's Hot 100 and Elite Women for 2021. They called you a hot woman, huh? That's pretty cool. A graduate of Illinois Wesleyan University with roots in Chicago, Meg is currently a digital nomad. I can't wait to dig into that. In the midst of a thoughtful travel adventure, when she's not helping business professionals, you can find Meg putting the practice into yoga practice, searching for the best vegan burger, or cheering on her favorite independent musicians. You can learn more about her at adjunctadvisors.com. Welcome to the show, Meg McKeen.
Thank you, Jim. It's an honor to be nominated. No, I'm just teasing. I'm so glad to be here. Yeah, we've had such good conversations leading up to this point, and I'm glad one of them is now finally going to be on the record. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, absolutely. We had some fun trying to get things going today. You are currently in the middle of a raging snowstorm in Denver, right?
Correct.
And it was causing some issues. At least we think it was on your end, but I'm thinking maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But I'm super excited to have you here now. Tell me about the digital nomad thing. What's that about?
By definition, a digital nomad is someone who is traveling and working without a home base. And that is exactly what I'm doing. I made the decision last fall of 2020 to put my place on the market in Chicago. I'd been there for about 10 years and had a great chapter, had been through a divorce and reestablished my independence and built some great friendships and made some interesting career moves, and then found myself really ready for a change and a challenge. And ended up selling my place, closing in February of 2021 and hitting the road. And I am now almost a year in and have covered most of the East Coast, large part of the Midwest, went international over the summer, and now I'm out west. So
that is awesome. That's awesome. Where'd you go international?
Spain.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I've never been there before.
Pretty magical. Put it on your list. Was in Barcelona for a week on either end of the trip, and then about a month on the coast, right near
Yeah.
the French border. And it's almost like a dream now, but the ability to pack a sandwich and go down to the Mediterranean and swim over lunch is just one of those pinch me life moments that
Yeah.
I just never want to take for granted. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That that's magical. It's funny because like we're in a work from anywhere environment right now. It's still like in the throes of COVID and people have learned how to do this. I think we could probably do a whole episode just on the concept of being a digital nomad. You probably have on your show. I don't know.
It comes up. One of the fun parts about my own podcast is that when you put the microphone in front of me, I get to tell whatever story I want to tell. And so I've been keeping listeners up to date with my travels through the podcast. So I haven't actually dedicated a whole episode to it. It is still something that is fairly new in terms of a work style, if you will.
Yeah.
And so there is a curiosity. By and large, people are like, wow, I'm fascinated. I could never do it. And here's
Yeah.
all the reasons why I did not have those reasons. And so I took the leap, and it's been truly an adventure. It's been more than I expected it would be. It's changed me in ways that I was really ready for and helped me to really fine tune my own focus and my priorities. It's been an amazing, we joke about, if we live to be 100, what are we thinking about when we're rocking on in the rocking chair on the front porch of the old folks home? And if I had stayed put for the last year and continued on the path that I was in Chicago, which was lovely, not a
Yeah.
judgment, I wouldn't be thinking about that year. This is a year that I'll be thinking about in my later years, I have no doubt. So for that reason alone, I'm really glad it worked out.
That's awesome. Good for you for taking the leap of faith and doing that too. That's awesome. You know, not
Well, thank
not
you
look
for
back.
that. But I also want to recognize, you know, as a wee young gal, I had ideas about where my life would be at this stage.
Sure.
Didn't envision being single, didn't envision not having children, didn't envision being self-employed. And so when I kind of looked at the circumstances that I found myself in, why not was really
Yeah.
the answer, or the question that I asked myself. And when I do the pro and con list, which I do often in my life as
Mm.
I'm making decisions and plotting my own course, there just wasn't much in
Yeah.
in the con column to tell me
Sure.
not to do it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. Good for you. Well, when we talked before about what this episode would be about, you said if it were a master class, that you would say it's stories that shape us would be the title of the master class. So I'm just wondering, was there like a pivotal moment for you or kind of an epiphany that you had that made you realize stories are super important, both professional and personal life?
Yeah. And it's what you just said. And I think we have been um trained, coached, um, thought to believe that our personal lives and our professional lives should remain independent. And I have found my greatest leaps professionally have been when I've really leaned in to my relationship with myself, my relationship with other people, how I see the world, and then being able to put words and stories around that experience is what has really drawn people and relationships and opportunities much closer to me. And so I definitely have had to do a lot of unraveling and unpacking of that. There's the corporate Meg and then there's the personal Meg, and never the two shall meet. And I'm
Yeah.
pushing that envelope every day. But the rewards in every sense of the word have been absolutely worth doing that work and challenging myself in that way.
Yeah. That's awesome. So how do stories play into all that? And why is that? Why are they important?
Um, I'm I just fundamentally like a story. Fundamentally as a human being, and maybe this goes back to being a young child and being a voracious reader and just devouring books and
Mm,
loving the adventure and the mystery and the how's it all going to end. And I think that's fundamentally inside of me. But
mhm.
I find other people really fascinating, and I want to sit over a cup of coffee or a couple of cups of coffee and hear stories. And there's
Yeah.
so many ways that we can get information, factual information, but
Mm.
when we can impart the human experience, the feelings, the emotions, the circumstances that are swirling around us, the context, I
Yeah.
think it leads to just a much richer connection and a deeper connection. And I don't know that anyone would argue after the last couple of years that we aren't all craving a little bit more humanity, a little
Yes.
bit more reality. Let's take the filters off. I mean, literally, like the filters on Instagram and the
Yeah.
filters on social media, and a little less editing, a little less fine tuning, and show me something real, show me something true. And I think stories are the best, fastest, uh, most authentic way to get there.
Yeah,
Um,
I totally agree. And they, I talked about it at the beginning with the download that I was talking about. I I truly believe stories, what they do better than anything else is to transform, if you're thinking about the character in the story, they transform the character, right? The character goes through some kind of transformation. And I think personally in business, they're so powerful because you give an example for a prospective client, of how their life can be transformed. I don't know if you've seen that as well. And
I do, and I challenge the industry every day, by example, right? That
yeah,
we still play it really safe. We choose. I mean, insurance gives us stories, thousands of stories every day. We all have them as
yeah,
professionals, and that's claims, right? That's when we've helped to meet people at their worst moment,
yeah,
and had an insurance solution there to meet them. I would argue the clients who choose to work with us will choose us not because of those stories, but because of our own personal stories. And it
mm,
doesn't mean that we have to pop the hood and talk about our worst day every day.
yeah,
But when we're asking someone to trust us, that when they're at their absolute worst, we will be there and be supportive of them and be with them,
hmm,
there's no more compelling way to do it than to show them that you are also capable of that level of humanity that they might be going through. And there's a risk there, right? There's that vulnerability of putting yourself out there and admitting that maybe you're not perfect and you don't have it all figured out. And that's the unraveling I think we have to do as insurance professionals. Is people don't choose us because we're the smartest insurance person in the room.
yeah,
They choose us because they feel seen and heard and respected and valued and
yeah,
important. That's not the stuff that we're learning in a classroom environment. That's the stuff we're learning by doing, by being out there and living our lives, and then bringing that back to our
yeah.
clients.
I love that. And one of the things that, you talk about with like just building connections is kind of what I heard you saying through, being vulnerable, I think naturally helps people trust each other more. Actually, there's a chemical, you may know this. I think it's called oxytocin that's
Mhm.
released in our bodies when we are when there's trust being built. It's literally like scientifically look it up. And actually, it's interesting because that's one of the things I found that when we do Zoom calls like this, there's a certain level of trust and authenticity that can be made, but there is something lacking when you're not physically present with someone for those chemicals. And I know this sounds like totally crazy, but seriously, go look it up. When you don't have that opportunity for the chemicals to literally interact with each other, when you're being vulnerable and building that trust and connecting with people.
Yeah. Yeah, that vulnerability is really a bid for something typically in kind in return. And so
Hmm.
when someone gives of you in that way, there isn't a explicit expectation that you're going to return, but that's the human experience, right?
Yes.
Don't ask me to say I love you first and then not say it back. Don't ask me to go to this vulnerable place and then not meet me there. And
Yeah.
so you're absolutely right. I think, as we often do, we spend a lot of time fighting human nature,
Yeah.
fighting what our guts and our bodies are telling us. I'm a big believer that our bodies often tell us things before our minds are quite ready to receive the message. And
Yeah.
I'm a believer in the gut instinct. I'm a believer in chemistry and trusting yourself enough to say with a client, this doesn't feel right. How powerful is it to say, I don't want this energy in my house, and therefore I am going to leave you at the front door, and being
Yeah.
okay with that.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful, takes a huge amount of confidence, great amount of self-awareness to be able to get to that place, and a great amount of support around you that is an acceptable business call, is to walk away.
Yeah. And you're living proof, right? You have a podcast and you're focused on, I think it's creating space for women in the insurance industry, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I listened to an episode. I haven't finished the whole thing yet, but I started to. I was just unbelievably blown away at how vulnerable you were to have a guest on to talk about infertility.
Yeah.
And you both shared experiences, and you talk about building a whole new level of trust with someone. How does that, like, does that take a lot of bravery? Like, how do you, or does it just come naturally to you? And also, how can insurance agents use this as a tool? Because I think it's a powerful thing to be so vulnerable with other people.
Yeah. I wish I could say I read a book, or that I woke up one day and I decided today is the day that I am going to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. This
Yeah.
is a journey. I'm here for the learning. I'm here for stubbing my toe and saying the wrong thing, and sometimes saying the wrong thing on record. The podcast that I host is a great, someday I'll pour a glass of something and I'll go back to the beginning and listen from the start, because I have evolved as a
Yeah.
host. I've evolved as a partner in those conversations, which is how I view that, those dialogues with my guests. And fundamentally, I cannot ask a woman who joins me on the podcast to go to a vulnerable place if I don't give her that in return. And
Yeah.
so it's a big ask of someone. And by and large, my guests understand that. They understand what we're looking for. They meet me there, and it's beautiful. For others, it's a bit more of a struggle. And so I have to continue to lead by example. And I
Mhm.
think there's a time and a place for everything. Even though I show up authentically as myself, I still have boundaries. There's
Yeah.
still certain relationships that I won't expose publicly. And it's not because I'm keeping deep, dark secrets. It's because my relationship with myself is still the most important. This is
Yeah.
still a business. This is still, I refuse to attach my worth to my work.
Yeah.
I've been there in my life, and I'm not going there again. And it's important work.
Yeah.
Some would argue the most important work that we're doing. And I'm okay with that. I believe that and support that, but it's okay to have those boundaries as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a fascinating exploration. I have been a long time follower and devourer of anything that Brene Brown puts
Ah,
out into the world. And
yeah.
from Brene was really where I first learned about this idea of shame and vulnerability, and what happens when you access these deep, dark places within yourself. Really, what you find and what the potential is then to change maybe the course that you've been on. And without getting super into it, one of my most favorite, probably my most favorite treasured tradition, is on my birthday. I pour a cup of coffee in the morning, first thing, and I listen to her TED Talk. And it's
Mm,
been downloaded a bazillion times,
yeah.
most of them by me, because I find every time I listen to it, I hear something different. She meets me exactly in the season of life that I'm in that moment. And
Yeah.
having a voice like hers, and there have been a lot of people who have now come sort of up through the ranks in a similar way, has really shown me that it's okay to have more than one side. It's okay to have, to show up in messy and uncomfortable ways,
Yeah.
even in a work environment. And that it's not just okay, but you might even be better for it and help other people to be better for it.
Yeah. I love that. And yeah, Brene Brown is fantastic. I think it was, I'm going to get this wrong. I know I am, but it's something like, stories are data with a soul or
Yes,
something like,
you
yeah.
got it. You did
Right.
not get it
Oh,
wrong. Good.
knocked
Well
it out of the park.
done. Yeah. She's
Um,
got a million little like gut punch
yeah,
one-liners that
yeah,
it's like, oh yeah,
yeah,
there she is again,
yeah,
delivering her truth bombs.
yeah.
And I fundamentally, to bring this back to insurance and storytelling, and she's obviously a believer in storytelling
Mhm.
and in that medium. I have for most of my career felt a disconnect with the industry and have often felt like the best parts of me I needed to put to the side
Mhm.
because I needed to be more wired for numbers and math and accounting and credits and debits and commission discrepancies and all the things that make my stomach hurt in not a good way.
Yeah.
And now I've kind of arrived in this season of life, and maybe it's age or experience or, what's going on around us at any given time. But I'm focusing less on what I'm not and really channeling what I am. And I
Mm.
know that I have the ability to help people feel comfortable quickly. That's what happens on the podcast. That's what
Yeah.
happens when I'm coaching.
Yeah.
When you honor who you are fundamentally and maybe fine tune or tweak a little bit,
Yeah.
it's a whole lot more pleasant than spending every day grinding to try to be something that you're not.
Yeah.
And that awareness for me that I have a choice in that was a huge moment for me. Again, didn't wake up on a Tuesday with that revelation. It's something that's come through repetition and practice and continuing to say, I don't like how it feels to do that thing. So therefore I'm going to do more of this thing. And not that it feels that I don't like the feeling because it's uncomfortable or because it's new, but because it's completely out of alignment with who
Yeah.
I am. And
Yeah.
so we have choice, right? We
Yeah.
have choice how we show up and the conversations we have and the relationships that we build. So
Yeah. I love it. And I know there have to be people out there right now who have been in the industry, whether it's a short period of time or a long period of time, and have at some point thought, I'm getting a little burned out. Like, I'm not sure if what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis is really my true passion, or, like you said, is like the kind of the data and the numbers and all the different, technical pieces of the job that really can make the the reason and the passion behind why you got into it in the first place start to seem like, wow, where is that? Where did that go? And but I know that there's people that are out there doing good, great, wonderful things for their clients. And if they find themselves in that situation, what advice would you give to them to kind of reignite the fire and help them continue to serve people for what they've been called to do?
I want to preface this. It's a brilliant question. I'm very careful about giving advice. Um, the world is saturated with experts who talk about being expert and tell you how to be an expert. And we don't need another one of those in this conversation. But I will say it's a choice to really do that deep dive and look at yourself in the deepest, darkest, most vulnerable places, and then do something with that knowledge.
Mm,
And most people won't get there. And it's not a judgment. There's nothing wrong with that. And I
yeah.
see it. My DMs are always jammed on LinkedIn. If you can help me figure out how to keep my inbox organized there, I'm all for it. And I apologize in advance for what I'm missing because it's a mess in there. But
Yeah.
what I hear over and over again, and mostly from women, because I work with both men and women, I have chosen to show up and lean into my own feminine experience,
Yeah.
largely because I felt that was missing in our
Yeah.
industry, particularly from a sales perspective.
Mhm.
What that's invited in is a lot of other women who are feeling a very similar misalignment. Their skills and their talents aren't being utilized. They're checked out, they're burnt out. I am not a mother. A lot of women working in the industry are, and so they're weighing the pressures and the demands of what their kids need right now and what their jobs are requiring. It's a lot. Plates are
Yeah.
very, very full right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Um, Often we'll have some sort of a discussion, a conversation, and where they land is exactly where they are. But they needed to say it out loud. They
Yeah.
needed a place where they could say, this is really hard and I'm not really sure if I'm cut out for this or if this is right for me, but it's really important to me to be able to have the membership to the country club so the kids can swim in the summertime.
Mhm.
And Johnny and Jack are getting ready to go to college in a couple years. And the best way that I know how in order to support them on that journey is to stay exactly where I am.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, there's something really powerful about just saying your truth out loud and knowing that whatever the answer is isn't wrong. It's what's right for you in that moment. And my experience and my journey is not the right one for anybody else. And
Sure.
there are days when I question it's the right one for me. And that's part of the adventure of all of this. And
Yeah.
then sometimes, and I'm seeing more and more of this, people will kind of put their hands up in the air and say, okay, I've done it your way for 20 years. Now I'm going to try it my way.
Yeah.
And that was very much the experience I had 4 years ago when I went out on my own. Was I couldn't find what I was looking for in the industry. And so I created it, which is
Yeah.
certainly an option. You know, it's not the easiest path, but it is another way to sort through some of that misalignment. I'm really proud of one of my current clients, and typically I'm working with producers who are like 6 months in, pretty green. They've got a little bit of technical training, but they're really trying to figure out how this whole insurance game works.
Yeah.
But I have a client right now who I would say with affection is an old dog wanting to learn new tricks, right? So he's been in the industry for a long time and he's having that alignment issue and
Mhm.
he's having that struggle where it's like, I've done the work, I've put in the time and I'm making the money, but I just can't do it anymore.
Mhm.
I can't keep following the same formula and getting the same results. And he approached me wanting, craving a different perspective. And
Yeah.
I think that's a really admirable moment as well, is to say, yeah, it is working. And the ability to succeed in our industry, I can't speak to any other. It's wild. I mean,
Yeah.
it is wild, the opportunity that's here.
Yeah.
But I think more than ever, we're really challenging how much is enough for a paycheck? How much am I willing to sacrifice and compromise in order to make a living at the end of the day? And I see more and more people craving that connection, that alignment, wanting to have purpose and meaning and value to their work. And obviously that speaks very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. And I think that those who take the time to being vulnerable with themselves and humble themselves to dig deep and really ask themselves what is it that really gets me out of bed in the morning? It gets me excited. Because if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to convey to your clients and your prospective clients that there's something more meaningful than just selling a product. Because at the end of the day, don't focus on selling your products, right? People don't care about that. Focus on, and again, kind of going back to storytelling, like, focus on the transformation that our products allow people to have in their lives. So if it's giving them more time because you did all the shopping of the insurance for them, or if it's putting them in a better financial position, that they're able to provide Christmas gifts for their children. We literally just had a client that kind of told us this story and really got me thinking about, we need to do a better job about storytelling, because they actually wrote a Google review and they kind of told the story. And they said, I was in dire straits and did not think that I was going to, a working mother, did not think she was going to be able to provide Christmas gifts for her kids. And she was kind of panicking and feeling really scared and feeling like didn't have a lot of self-worth, and contacted her agent. Agent said, let me shop this for you. Let me see what I can do. Saved her a bunch of money. And her response was, oh my God, thank you. I now feel more confident. I am so grateful that my kids get to experience, Christmas the way I want them to experience it, and not feel like mom is, hanging on by a thread. And I have more confidence in myself as a mother and as a person. And right? You see what happened there? There was a
I do.
transformation.
I'm buying what you're selling, Jim. I mean,
There's
like I say that tongue in cheek, but I mean, I got chills when you told the story. I can picture that woman. I can picture the emotions that she's feeling. Her
yeah,
experience has very little to do with insurance, and I
none.
think you've nailed what I think has always been the hardest thing for us to overcome as insurance professionals is that the buyers of insurance care very little about insurance.
Yeah.
When we talk about, I want to educate my clients, your clients don't want to be educated. They
No.
want to know as little about insurance, right? Like I say this tongue in cheek, but
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah.
My own coaching model is built on my experience as an agent. And I was very sharp in my focus. I knew as a woman scaling a small business, one of the questions I would get peer to peer all the time was, can you help me figure out this insurance piece? It's the last on my list. I'm overwhelmed. My background is in nonprofits or in, I was a teacher or something
Mhm.
very not insurance like. And
Right.
so, in a very quick amount of time, because I knew the language to use, I knew the language not to use, that it was very, very rarely did it come down to your price is a little higher or I don't understand this coverage. It was overwhelmingly this, thank you for making this process, this idea, this concept that has been so foreign and so heavy and so overwhelming for me, less so, period.
Yeah.
And if I could get that reaction, I know I had done my job. And I think we're always sort of chasing something bigger than that as salespeople. We want to solve this massive gap in the risk management program. And sometimes we can do that.
Sure.
But man, this idea of meeting people where they are, I can't say it enough that even that CFO that's sitting at the table intimidating the you know what out of you as an agent
Yeah.
still knows less than you and will always know less than you about insurance. And he might try to outsmart you because that's his own ego at play,
Right.
but you're going to win every time. And you're not going to win because you can go toe to toe with him coverage wise, but because you can knock him off of that I know more than you pedestal. And you don't do that. You do that through stories. You do that through connection. You do that through the word choice that you make. And
Yes.
you've clearly hit a nerve. You've clearly found my love language. But I am really passionate about why I say I work at the crossroads of personal and professional is because we have to do the work. We are insurance professionals, but we don't do a tenth of what we could be doing on ourselves that would pay off in greater dividends, in my opinion.
And not only on an individual insurance agent standpoint, but also agencies as a whole. This is honestly one thing that we're in the process, in the very beginning stages of trying to do a better job of, is finding those stories. And really, it's the easiest way to find them is to think about clients who have been really grateful, right? That it's like where that's the smoke where there's fire, right? Oh, I see gratefulness floating in the air. Okay, let's let's follow that smoke down and see where's the flame. Well, the flame is that there was a result in that person's personal life or maybe in their business that they were struggling with. There was a result that they got that had nothing to do with insurance.
Yeah.
And then you work backwards. How did that transformation come about? What was life like before we started working with them? What was the transformation, the pivotal moment? What is life like now? It's as simple as that, honestly.
Yeah.
And if people remember, and I read this from Donald Miller's brand storytelling, and it's that we are not the heroes of our clients' stories.
Yeah.
People get that confused all the time. Like, we are the almighty insurance agents. We know what we're doing. No, we are Yoda. They are Luke Skywalker. We don't, if like we're the guide, right?
Yeah.
We're every single person wakes up the hero of their own story every morning.
Yeah.
They don't wake up thinking, ooh, that insurance company that's going to help me today. I can't wait. They're my hero. No one does that. Right.
No.
I don't even
No.
think that about Starbucks, and I like Starbucks way too much, but they are not the hero.
Right.
Their caffeine is my guide.
Yes. Right. Well, and I actually use Donald Miller's StoryBrand framework in my coaching. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had multiple clients read the book and work through the exercises. I think it's a really smart way to get yourself out of your own way, if
Yeah.
that makes sense, because you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. We've been conditioned, we've been trained, we've been instructed. What's going on around us in terms of industry perception is that insurance agents are high in ego. They know how to clear a room because all they're trying to do is sell people insurance. I mean, it's
Right.
the stories will go on longer than we'll be around to hear them,
Yeah.
but we can change that on an individual level,
Yeah.
one at a time.
Yeah.
And it's hard sometimes to not follow the masses and to say, I'm going to try it a different way. And I really feel this for individuals who are working in a larger environment where there is a sales process. This is the way we do it. You do not veer from the track. I get that. There's a lot of pressure there to do it the way that's been prescribed for you. To me, where the magic happens, the proverbial, the holy grail, is when you can take the best parts of an approach like that and then marry them with what makes you you,
Yeah.
uniquely you.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what that is, ask people. Like, seriously, I've had to
Yeah.
swallow my pride and reach out to some people in my network and literally ask, how do you see me? What do you think of when you think of
Ooh.
me?
Yeah.
And then go do more of that.
Yeah.
Focus on that. And then marry that with what you do know about insurance and sales. And
Yeah.
there's an ease, there's a comfort that makes you want to do more of it. It
Yeah.
makes it more authentic for the people on the receiving end. They're the ones that are going to want to talk about you to their
Yeah.
friends and family and to their professional networks. This isn't, I don't want to simplify it. It's hard work. Again, self awareness has to be super high. You're not going to read this in a book. There is no magic formula. Everybody
No.
wants it. They want the 5-step system to 10x my business overnight. There's nuggets of gold in every one of those programs.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there isn't, but
Yeah.
the secret sauce is the individual and how they choose to disseminate that information.
Because it makes them authentic, and that's what draws us into people is authenticity, right?
Yeah.
We can smell, we can see through fake people very easily. You know,
Yeah.
I love what you said about asking other people, how do you see me?
Yeah.
Because wow, you talk about, okay, you have to be very vulnerable to receive what they're going to tell you, because it's not always going to be the greatest. I was sharing a story with you before we got on air about my dear friend. I will call him my dear friend because we were on a podcast together and you are now my dear friend, but James Jenkins, who really challenged me off air, about the direction of this podcast. And I thank you very much, James. I really do. And I emailed you afterwards, and I know that I'm grateful, but I'm telling you again, I'm grateful. People who challenge you and you being willing to accept the constructive feedback. I don't like to say criticism because it's feedback, right?
Yep.
But constructive feedback. That's how you get better. And actually, that in our agency, that's one of our core values that we identified about ourselves, about the people who are already in our agency, is that generally they have a grow or die attitude. I went to Boston College, and our motto was ever to excel. It's always seeking to do better. And the only way that you do that is if you have some self-reflection and some honest, constructive feedback from people outside of your own self.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
No,
brilliant.
it's a very actual real exercise. You have to be open to the feedback.
Yeah.
And you also have to be selective about who you ask, because if it's
Yeah.
not the opinion of someone that you really value,
Yeah.
you kind of take the feedback with a grain of salt. But
Yeah.
it's interesting. I hadn't heard that phrase or that motto from Boston
Oh
College.
yeah. Ever to excel. Yeah.
Um, I'm having a moment with some language like that these days. And I think it's coming largely from our experience with the pandemic, but I feel this as an insurance professional and in sales because I'm in business development too, right? I'm not actively selling insurance anymore, but I
Yeah.
need people to come, buy my thing. And
Yeah.
there is this sense of the hustle and the grind and the always being better than you were yesterday. I'm exhausted right now. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired. There's a lot of people out there that are tired. And it doesn't mean that I'm not giving it my all or I'm doing my best. I'm not phoning it in by any means. But
Yeah.
what if we could just take a little pressure off? What if we could just sit with where we are in this moment, knowing we're doing the best we can
Yeah.
and that tomorrow is another day? And like, if there's ever been a time in our lives, in our business, in the world when that grace and that space is appropriate, I
Yeah.
think we're in it. And I think that's a call to some leaders in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you're a leader. I would consider you in that. That I'm not just saying this because I'm sitting on your podcast right now, but that top echelon of like, you get it. You
Yeah.
get what it looks like to lead versus manage. You understand what leadership by example looks like, what vulnerability looks like, authenticity. That's all what we're asking for right now. And
Sure.
there is a mindset where you just kind of put your head down and you hope it goes away.
Yeah.
Someday we'll be out of this pandemic. Someday we'll return to some version of normal. If we can just grin and bear it, we'll get there. I'm different for the experience I've had, not just in the last couple of years, but in my whole life.
Yeah.
We all are.
Sure.
There's lessons there if we're willing to learn them.
Yeah.
There's learning and growth if we're willing to be there for it.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of in the season of life where it's like, sometimes Netflix is the answer. And sometimes fiction is the answer. I
Yeah.
haven't read all the business books, but I've read a lot of them. And bringing it back around to being a little girl and loving a story, I still do.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to get lost in
Yes.
something else for a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. And it reminds you that there's things that are many stories that we veg out and watch Netflix or read a book that helps us escape. It gives us the opportunity to slow down and see and remember that there are things bigger than what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
Things that are bigger than a lot of what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Wow, we could like keep going forever, and I'm really having fun. But I
Yeah.
also want to be mindful of our audience and like what their attention span is going to be like. So I
Fair
would
enough.
love to get into the rapid fire round
Do
if
it.
you're ready.
Yeah.
If you're
I'm
ready,
ready.
and I can already tell like I'm going to have you back on sometime.
Ah, I love it. Anytime.
Yeah, yeah. One piece of technology or software that you cannot live without.
Yeah, hands down. I'm a scrappy one woman show. And so my CRM that handles all my invoicing and client scheduling and all of that is called Dubsado.
Dubsado.
And I love it because it was built for creative people, not insurance people, not
Ooh,
business people. And
okay.
so it's got some fun graphic design sort of functionality that really feeds that part of my soul. And also makes me look like I'm not a scrappy one woman show. So that would be my tech plug for today.
Awesome. I love that. I've never heard of that one before. I love it when people bring new things to the show. Not that I'm like, dogging on anybody who's ever said my iPhone, but a lot of people say my iPhone. So
You can have it. No, I'm kidding. But like it's a love-hate relationship right now with the
yeah.
phone. And it, boundaries, right? I think we're all working on finding that sweet spot.
Yeah, no doubt. What about one book that you're reading right now or one that you've read in the past that you just love?
Without a doubt, book is called Playing Big. It's by a woman named Tara Mohr.
Okay.
It was my first introduction to the topic of imposter syndrome, which is something that I've taught on and comes up often with my clients. It was also the first book I read when I left my last corporate insurance role. And I really started to explore how I wanted to show up in my business and really talks a lot about limiting language that we use. So how often we qualify what we say with the justs and the, does that make sense? Have I been clear? Like all that diminishing language that we use so often. And then ideas around the inner critic and what is that sort of devil on our shoulder that's telling us what we can and can't do, and how do we put that in its place? And I have read it several times. I'm actually reading it again right now because, again, there's always something new to be learned. And I have gifted it to so many people over the years because it's impossible for anyone to read it and not feel something.
Yeah. I I will pick it up because I told you off air, I'm writing a book right now. And that is one of the things that my book coach, Amy Collette, in case anybody's looking for a book coach, Unleash Your Inner Author. She talks in like the first session or two about imposter syndrome. And I definitely was like, oh man, I am all over that because I definitely feel like an imposter about what I'm trying to write about, which is storytelling. I mean, I love stories, but do I know everything about it? Am I, a Donald Miller or
Right.
somebody like that?
Who am
No.
I to tell this story? Who am I to
Right.
be the, yeah, no.
Yeah.
And I'll shower you with this fun fact of validation that
Yeah.
70% of people feel it. It's very normal. I like that there's a label for it so we can kind of call it what it is and
Yeah.
put it in its place. But celebrities, I mean, Michelle Obama and Tom Hanks and like these household names that you would think
Yeah.
literally are on top of the world
Yeah.
have stood up there to receive an Oscar and felt like they didn't deserve to be there. That's
Yeah.
really powerful and
Yeah.
helps, I think, those of us who are figuring it out as we go to feel a little less alone, which is what this is all about, right? Just
Yeah.
please don't make me navigate this journey on my own.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love it. Do you ever
Yeah.
listen to anything, any books on Audible, or do you just always read
Well,
print?
I have been since I've been driving so
Oh
much.
yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of the public library, and I hope they don't come and take it away from me, but I still have my Chicago Public Library card, and I do audio book downloads through the library, and I'm
Okay.
currently listening to Will Smith wrote a memoir, and so I'm listening. He's narrating it as well. So
Nice. Oh,
really
that's cool.
fascinating. Yeah.
My kids and our whole family now, on Disney Plus, he's got a series with National Geographic. I don't know if you've seen it, but
No.
it
Mm-mm.
is unbelievable. It's called like Welcome to Earth. And he goes to these incredible places all over Earth and is just talking about like it's using the different senses. And so each episode will have the theme of, smell or taste or touch or whatever it is. And it's just um Will Smith is so sexy. Man, what an awesome guy. I love that guy.
And like talk about staying power, like as a kid
Yeah.
in the 80s growing up watching the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, thinking like,
Yeah.
there's no way this guy
Right.
is still gonna be like
Right.
doing his thing, let alone a household name, let alone I'm driving across the country listening to his like never saw that coming. But
Right.
if that doesn't tell you what's possible,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we'll be watching you collect your Pulitzer Prize for the book that you're writing. You
Yeah.
just don't know what's possible.
That would be awesome. Well, if you want to try it, or anybody who's listening, if you go to audibletrial.com/grow big, you can actually get a free month. And I think they give you a free book. And I think if you're Amazon Prime member, they give you like 2 free books that you can listen to.
Nice.
And that's so Friday, I'm actually driving up into the North Georgia mountains to see all 3 of our offices. And it's quite a ways to like drive around. So I'm like, ooh, what am I going to listen to? I'm so excited.
That's
So
great. I love it.
yeah. Yeah. But audibletrial.com/grow big for anybody who wants that. One, well, I'm curious because we talked about stories a lot. Do you have a story about a time when you or somebody that you work with helped solve a problem for a prospect or a client or somebody?
Yeah, I'm gonna share a personal one, and it was pivotal in my decision to change course
Yeah.
professionally. I was working in an agency environment and was in an account executive role, and piece of new business had come in through referral from an existing client, and it was an RFP, a request for proposal,
Okay.
which not my favorite thing,
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah. Because you're bidding against,
Bidding,
with
and
everybody else.
it's just the grind. It's
Yeah.
the prove your worth, and it brings up kind of feelings that I don't love
Yeah.
necessarily, but they
Yeah.
also serve a purpose in our industry. And so
It makes you feel like you're playing dodgeball.
yeah. And interestingly, the way that it was worded and came through, I was like, I don't think the person asking for this RFP really understands what's going on here, because it was like, uh, come back with like all your quotes.
Okay.
And that had gone out to several brokers. And
Yeah.
so, as you well know, you start running into each other, and there's like, first pick your broker, then pick your carriers. There's a way to go about this, right?
Yeah.
And so I was working with a producer on the opportunity, and I said, "Hey, I think it might make sense just to have a call with the person that put this together." It was the CFO. And he's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. If that's, go for it." And so I
Yeah.
got her on the phone, and I was like, "I just want to go back to square one, and I want to talk about what this process looks like from our perspective and make sure that we're on the same page." Did that. Um, Long story short, we ended up getting the deal.
Awesome.
And it was because of that conversation. It was
Yeah.
because, like you and I were talking about, we went all the way back to square one and met her exactly where she was, which was with less than any knowledge about how this whole process works, and did
Yeah.
it in a way that wasn't, let me educate you and scold you and make you
Yeah.
feel
Not
small,
demeaning.
but let me help empower you in this process so that you look good to the board and that you get the result that you want. And so ended up getting the broker selection, and then obviously ended up placing the business. And then the switch flipped for me, and I realized there's so much opportunity for me in conversations like this,
Mm.
because the average agent isn't thinking like that.
Yeah.
They're playing the game as it's handed to him or her. They're
Right.
not trying to make sure that the rules of the game are serving them best.
Yeah.
That sounds so cold and calculated.
Yeah.
It's not. It's really
Yeah.
recognizing where the gaps and the deficiencies are in the process
Yeah.
before you even get to the insurance piece. And so that was a moment for me where I just was affirmed that there was something else out there for me, and there was a whole lot more for me to contribute than what I had been doing up to that point. So
Oh,
yeah, it's really slowing down, getting back to basics, meeting people where they are.
yeah.
It's powerful.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it.
Thanks. Yeah, fun. Those are the fun ones, right?
I
You don't
know.
win them all. That's for
Yeah.
sure. But
Meg, what about one final piece of advice or actionable step for our audience that you would leave them with?
yeah, I'll reiterate. I'm not a fan of advice. I would say,
Or maybe something you've learned.
oh gosh, what have I not learned? I think that we don't honor where we've been enough.
Mm.
And as risk management professionals, we are risk takers, even if we don't feel like we are. And one of
Mhm.
my favorite exercises to do is to go back and do a risk review on our own lives and think
Mm.
about the times when we made a decision that sent us down a very different path had we not made the decision. And we are capable of so much, and so much more than we will ever give ourselves credit for. And doing that little bit of reflection can be so helpful as we consider what is in front of us, and maybe what we're meant
Yeah.
for.
Ooh, I love it. That was deep too.
How'd I do? I mean, if hosting a podcast doesn't help you think on your feet, I don't know. I don't know what
It's
does, but
funny. Yeah, I have definitely learned to think on my feet more.
yeah.
No, that was beautiful. Okay, one final question that you weren't prepared for. Maybe
Uh-oh.
you were. I don't know. If I said, and think about this carefully, because there is a snowstorm raging outside of where you are right now in
Yeah.
Colorado. If I said, Meg, it's really cold, would you rather have some hot soup or hot chocolate with gourmet marshmallows? Which would you rather have?
Right now, I'm going to go for the soup because
Oh,
I skipped lunch and I'm just fundamentally hungry.
oh
But
man.
any
Okay.
other time, it would be hot chocolate. It would be
Okay. So what's your favorite kind of soup?
nice. Well, how do you know someone's vegan? They tell you.
Oh yeah.
It would be something vegetable based, maybe some lentils or something to give it a little bit of substance. But I love to cook. It's one of the hardest things about this lifestyle that I'm living is I'm in somebody else's kitchen 100% of the time, and you just never quite know what gadgets are going to be available to you. But soup is a mainstay for me. So some sort of veggie, some sort of stew, like heavy something for a cold winter day.
Awesome. I am going to send you a gift from Spoonful of Comfort. Have you ever heard of them?
I have. Yeah. That's so
Yes.
nice.
They are. So we send it to our guests because we love our guests and we're very grateful to have our guests. And it's actually something that we gave to our entire company last year during the lockdown, like when we were supposed to have a big employee appreciation brunch in person. We couldn't do it. So we sent everybody Spoonful of Comfort and they loved it.
Nice.
And I decided to start sending it to our guests on the podcast and they have loved it. So I will get your address wherever that happens to be. Like, I'm probably gonna have to time it for like wherever you're gonna be. Then
I was gonna say you need a tracker to figure out.
I know, right?
Where I am. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll get that off air and we'll get you some soup out to you. But
Awesome. I will enjoy that. And not a surprise, such a thoughtful gesture. You're a thoughtful human. I'm glad to be navigating this insurance journey with you, and can't wait for my travels to take me back the other direction so we can do this in person.
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to that. And thank you for saying that. Meg, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you and get some more Meg McKeen in their life?
Yep, you shared it in the introduction, but Adjunct Advisors is my site, but I am very active on LinkedIn. So
yes,
that's a very reliable place to find me. I try to post a couple times a week, something fun, something thought-provoking. That's where you can find new podcast episodes, all that good stuff.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Meg, it has been an absolute pleasure. I think our audience is going to love this episode and I'm very grateful to have you on. So thank you very much.
Thanks for holding the space.
Absolutely. Folks, until next time, grow big or go home. Take care.